Hi there, I'm Zoe, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to analyze a piece of music that you are going to dance to. So whether you are making a choreography for yourself, making a choreography for a group, going to improvise, or even dancing to somebody else's choreography, this is a great method to really get to know the piece of music that you will be performing inside and out. It makes choreographing things much, much easier, and it will also really improve your listening and also musicality. So this is my method. All you need is the song you're going to be dancing to and a pencil and paper. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be analyzing a specific song, which is Alf Lela Wa Lela, 1001 Nights. This is a very, very, very famous song. I'm sure you've heard it. It's the one that starts dun 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 da 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 da. Yeah. So we are going to be looking at that particular piece of music for the purposes of analysis, but this method can be applied to any piece of music. And the version I am using is by the Cairo Orchestra. It's a really beautiful version. I'm going to link it below as well so that you definitely have access to that, because it will really help if you can listen to that music and follow along. I will also try to insert clips of it into this video if I can, but it's good to have it on your own. Then you can also pause the video at any time, take things at your own pace. Yeah, so grab your pencil and paper. I used a pen for this. That was just so that it would be easier to see, but normally I would only use a pencil. And let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to be listening to this music over and over and over again. First, we write down our title, what the piece is, who it's by. And the first thing then after that we're going to do, we're going to go through and we're going to write down every section. So we're going to write the times when each section starts and begins. So you might have to stop and then start again. You might not be able to go all the way through just writing down, especially if there's sections that come really quickly. But you want to just listen to the piece and then start writing. So the first one would start at 0, 0. And then when you hear the section change, then okay, that's the end of that first section. So I would write the time. In the case of the song, the first section is about 21 seconds. And then, so the first section, 0, 0 to 0, 21, and then I start the next section. How do you know when there's a new section? Of course, this is, you're going to feel it. It should be fairly intuitive. Of course, the more you listen and practice your musicality and whatnot, the easier it will be to hear these differences. But just generally, other ways you can tell when there's a different section. First way, different rhythm. So if there's a different rhythm, it is definitely a new section. I can't think of any time when there would be one section with multiple rhythms, unless you have like really, really big sections, but I would try to make them smaller than that. So if there's a different rhythm, you know you're in a new section. A lot of times, if the main instrument changes, if you heard like the whole orchestra was playing and then suddenly it switches to like a ney solo, then that would be a new section. If there's sometimes a change in the melody can tell you, so sometimes maybe the rhythm will be the same, but you start a new melody and that might be a new section. It might not. Some of it is subjective, but I mean, of course the whole thing is subjective. This is how you're going to dance it. But so you want to split it up into sections. So you go through, write down, okay, first section, it's like 21 seconds. Okay, and then we start listening, next section, right? And we write down, okay, this section goes to about 36 seconds, and continue. We're going to do the whole thing, all our sections. Okay, so that's step one. Step two, then, we're going to go back to our sections, and I like to give them, we're going to give them names. I like to just use letters, just go through the alphabet. So the first section would be A, or sometimes A1, because sometimes even here I kind of start grouping sections into kind of bigger groups of sections. So in this case, with this piece, Aflela Walela, the first section I'm going to call A, this like doom, 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 da, 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 da. Okay? And then this next section we have that is a bit faster. Okay, this is B. Next section. This is C. So we go through. After that, there's this kind of taksim section. And now we notice, as we're writing this, after the taksim, we go back to this. The section that was before this. This one, it comes back. So I'm not going to go E for that. I'm going to write C prime. So this is kind of my way. You might have another way to do this, but it's important to have a way where you're writing down which sections are repeating, right? Especially when you're doing like pop songs and then like you'll have the chorus coming back over and over again. So this way you have it really clear, like you can see, okay, this piece, like this C section, it comes in here, and then it comes in again, like 2 sections later, and then it comes in again at the end. And that will really help. You're already getting a sense of this structure for your choreography. Okay, so we're going to go through. I'm going to give letter names to all the sections. You can also see, like, there's this this next section, section after F, this G section. I actually split it up. This is the section that goes dun 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 dun. Sorry about my singing, but that section. I split this G into like a whole bunch of different Gs. So here I have G1, G2, G3, G4. And as you'll see later, it's because these sections, they all have the same rhythm, but they have different melodies and sometimes different instruments. And so to me, they're different sections. For you, it might all just be one big section, but I made them different sections. But because they're all grouped together, I call them here G1, G2, G3, G4, and then we get back and G2 repeats itself. So now I have G2 prime, just like before with the C prime. So again, these are just ways to kind of give things a structure. And I like to have it all written on the page. It makes it really easy to see. So go through your piece, all your sections that you found, give them all letter names, or if you want to give them names of another kind, maybe you want to give them more kind of creative names that actually like give you a feeling for each section. Like you could be like, oh, this is the very kind of mystical section, or this section is the really earthy melody section. That can also help, as long as you have it clear where you have repeating sections coming back and where things are grouped together that are similar. Okay, so that was steps 1 and 2. Step 3, really important step. We're going to go through all of our sections and you're going to write what rhythm it is. So if you haven't studied your rhythms, study your rhythms. You need to study your rhythms, especially if you're going to be choreographing. But yeah, for dancing in general, it just makes life so much easier. And usually it's like the same, I don't know, like 8 basic rhythms that come up all the time. Sometimes you do get a bit weird rhythms. You might have to go look it up. I'm going to link also some rhythm resources that I really like below so that you can study rhythms, and also some of these just have like a really big list of all kinds of rhythms, so then you can try to find some of those weirder rhythms. But yeah, you're going to write which rhythm each section is. So we start at the beginning. Again, we have this like doom, 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 da, 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 doom, 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 da, da. This is a Masmudi rhythm. It's the version of Masmudi with 3 dooms. There's also the 2 doom Masmudi. So I'm going to write 3 doom Masmudi. And that's my first one. Okay. Then going to the next one, we have doom tech, tech, doom tech, doom tech, tech, doom tech. If you have studied your rhythms, you'll recognize that's the maksum. And then we have the dun da 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 da, doom doom, tech, doom, tech. So that's Bellydance. So as you can see, we're just going through, writing down every rhythm. After the Bellydance one, we have this long taksim section. So there's actually no rhythm. So I'm just going to write taksim. And then we go back to the Bellady, going on. There's wahda, there's Bellady, wahda, going all the way down, all the way to the end. So we get all of our rhythms. And yeah, sometimes it's not 100% clear what rhythm is what. Like there are places I wrote here, Saidi, you might argue it's Bellady, but it's not that important as long as you have a good idea of what the rhythm is and you're able to dance to it and choreograph it. Okay, so you've already gone through your song a lot of times at this point. We're going to go through it some more. The next step is also really important. Now we're going to go through each section. We have the rhythm. So for each rhythm, you know how many beats are in a measure for that rhythm. And you are going to write down how many measures of that rhythm there are. So like the first section, we have the Tridu Masmudi. This Masmudi, it's an 8-beat rhythm. Doom, 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 da, 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 da. Right, so that's one measure. And if we hear it again, doom, 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 da, 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 da. That's 2. If you listen to it, you'll hear there are actually 6 of them. So you would actually go through, you would count. I use my fingers to count like 1, dun, dun, da, 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 2, da, 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 da. It really helps because it's easy to get lost in this. And you might have to go back and listen to it a bunch of times to be sure. But it's really important for choreographing, so you know, okay, there's 6. And actually, I'm not going to write it as 6 in this case. I'm going to write it, what I hear with these groups of Masmudi, I hear like a group of 2 measures of Masmudi. That's one group of 2, and then then there's another group of 2, and then there's another group of 2. And in this case, it's kind of the melody that's giving me the clue. So I like to write it like this. Instead of just writing 6, I would write 3 times 2, meaning 3 groups of 2 measures, which of course is equal to 6. It's just a way that, again, gives you that structure so that when you're choreographing, you can be like, okay, I need like some sort of movement that will work for 2 measures of Masmudi, and then maybe I can vary that and do it again, but facing a different direction, and then facing another direction, for example. Just ways to get you to help, like organizing things in your brain. Okay, so that was the first section. We could go on to the next section, the Maksum, section B. So if we count that, that's doom tech, tech, doom tech, doom tech, doom. So that was 4, and then it repeats. So 2 times 4. Yeah, I hope this is clear. You could just write 8, but I think writing it this way already helps give you more structure and makes things easier in the end. So we're just going to go through, do the same thing. The Bellady, turns out it's also 2 groups of 4 measures. Okay, taksim, you don't really have measures, so I wouldn't write anything there. Although some taksim sections have kind of like a pulse. And then I might write like, okay, I'm counting like 8 pulses just to help me keep track of things. But in this case, there isn't really a pulse that I heard. So nothing there. Go through, write down how many measures. It doesn't have to be like 2 groups of 4 or 3 groups of 2. Sometimes I might just write 4 or 6. It's really how you hear it. So you go through, write down all the counts, how many measures of each rhythm there are. And then you are well on your way. You're probably really sick of listening to this song, or you've got it probably at this point really well ingrained into your ear and into your mind, which is great. You can, by the way, take a break at any point during this. I don't usually do this all during one sitting because it just gets to be too much. It's a lot. It's a lot of listening and thinking and writing. So I usually break it up. I might just do the sections and then come back in a few hours or the next day, do the rhythms. And then I'm going to go on to this last part. So the last part that you are going to concentrate on is the instruments. And again, here it really helps to have a knowledge just in general of what different instruments sound like, but especially Middle Eastern instruments. But even if you don't, like, you can't necessarily name instrument, it's not the end of the world. Like, as long as you can hear the difference, like you can hear that the violin, it sounds like strings, it sounds, or the flute, it sounds, or the ney, it sounds more mystical and airy and whatever. But it's easier, of course, if you do know the names, because then it's just faster. So you're going to go through, and the first thing I do is I write down the main instrument in each section. So usually each section will only have one main instrument. Sometimes they might have like two instruments going back and forth, but usually it's one. So in this case, we start, and actually at the beginning of this song, this version, certainly, it's actually what is called tutti, which comes from Italian. It means all. So this is just when like everyone's playing together. So yeah, sometimes I just write like everything. I'll write like, it's strings and percussion and wind and all this, but you can just write tutti, and that means like everybody's playing. So that's the main instrument, everyone, which does happen. So going through, and actually in this song, the first several sections are all just kind of the whole orchestra playing together. And it only is when we get to the taksim that then you hear there's this like one solo instrument, which sounds like a violin. So I'm going to write violin. Again, you might not always be 100% correct, but the important thing is that you know kind of what you think it is and what the feeling is, and you've heard that there's a difference. So we hear here there's a violin. That's the main instrument. It's playing this taksim. So write that down. And then we continue on. There's another tutti section, and then there's this kanun, right? The kanun it's like a zither, that you pluck, and it has this very shimmery sound a lot of the time. So definitely, there are also resources for learning about Middle Eastern instruments that I would recommend as well. I know it's a lot to learn, but it will really help you. So we go through, we write down what the main instrument is in all the sections. And then the last step that I like to do is to write down as many of the other instruments that I can hear. Now, of course, if it's like a big orchestra with 30 instruments, you're not going to write down every single one. And like usually for percussion, I just write like percu, percussion or something. I'm not going to specify in that much detail. But like if you hear a lot of times in Middle Eastern music, some instrument will do kind of little accents. So I like to write that down. If I hear like, a little ney accent or a little kanun accent, like in this first section, I have tutti, but at the same time I am hearing kind of percussion. I'm hearing like a bit of ney kind of peeping out there and a bit of kanun. And this might be something that I want to pick up in my dancing. And these are things that also are kind of easy to miss if you're not listening for them. So I like to really write down all these background instruments, what's going on. Next section, we have percussion, and I specifically am writing rik, because there's a lot in this song. You hear a lot of the rik is like kind of that cymbal. It's like a drum, but it has like little mini cymbals around the edges. So you can hear that being played a lot here. And this is all just kind of going to enrich your understanding of the song, going through, writing down all the secondary instruments. And then at the end, you have your final analysis. You have the whole piece of music. It's all written down from start to finish, every section, the whole structure, where you have repeats, where you have sections that are similar, the rhythms, how many measures, the instruments, you have everything. And so honestly, after doing this, you might not even really need to look at this that much because you have it so well in your mind. But you might want to look at it, especially if you're doing like a big group choreography and you really need to think about like, okay, where are my repeats? How many measures of this do I have? Where could there's so many things you can play with, and then having the structure here really helps. But I find this helpful for everything. I do this for every single piece that I'm going to choreograph and dance to, basically. I mean, unless it's something really, really, really simple. But yeah, I always do this. I find it really helpful. Again, it will also help improve your listening, improve your ear, which then in turn improves your dancing. So I hope that this method is helpful for you as well. Of course, you can tweak it, do whatever you want to change it to make it work better for you. This is just what I do and what I find works best for me. So if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Share with anyone who might find this interesting. Thank you so much for watching, and happy practicing.